It's impossible to ignore this pattern, impossible to ignore the history, impossible to ignore the way these cases are rushed, shut down, or labeled before families even get the chance to ask a single question. Because in America, a Black person doesn't just die, they get explained away. Suicide, no foul play, nothing to see here. Every time, on repeat, like someone hit copy paste on an entire generation of investigations. And the thing that should shake every one of us awake is this: if we don't demand answers, nobody will. If we don't push for transparency, they will keep treating Black lives, brown lives, as disposable. If we don't force the truth into the light, this cycle continues for the next family, and the next, and the next. This is From Dirt We Grow. I am Stephanie Kendall. The message of today's episode is of critical importance, and it needs to reach and touch as many ears as possible. The stories you're about to hear receive little to no media coverage, which means little to no action is ever taken to stop this. So I am not too proud to beg you to share this episode like lives depend on it, because they do. On November 13th, 2025, in Brookfield, Wisconsin, 39-year-old Tori Medley was found hanging from a tree. Almost immediately, it was ruled a suicide. This story is not the only one in recent years with disturbingly similar circumstances. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, but maybe this one was suicide, just hold that thought and hold it tightly. Because when you look at the next case and the next one and the next one, a pattern starts to emerge. A pattern we can no longer ignore. Trey Reed, Donte Perez Jones, Javion MaGee, Tori Medley, all Black men, all found hanging, and every single one ruled a suicide. Their families are left with more questions than answers. It is paramount to make clear that if a Black person decides to end their own life, the likelihood of them choosing this method is practically zero. Because this method is not just another method of death, it is a symbol of racial terror and generational trauma. There is a psychological factor involved not only in deciding to end one's life, but in the method they choose to carry it out. Hanging from a tree is an unthinkable choice for Black folks. Now, beyond that, people of all backgrounds, even in the deepest moments of mental crisis, do not typically choose a method that creates a public spectacle. Most of these situations happen in private. So, yes, it's safe to say that by pointing all of this out, I am unequivocally convinced that the fate of these men was not by their own hand. In fact, I'd call it something far closer to modern day lynching. Given the shameful lack of focus on these egregious acts, I chose to dig into each case myself to try to give them at least a fraction of the attention that they deserve. Before we get into the individual stories of the four men that I mentioned, I need to point out there are many, many, many other cases across the nation. Through doing my research, through digging into this, I found many other cases that I just want to mention their names. I don't know. These are the cases that we don't know much about. The local authorities kept these incidences out of the media, they swept it under the rug. DeAndre Rogers, he was found hanging in a carport in Grand Junction, Colorado on September 21st, 2020. He was a 32-year-old father of 8. And before the investigation was even complete, apparently the police and coroner ruled it a suicide. June 2025, a 58-year-old Black man was found hanging from a tree on Westerlo Street in Albany, New York. Earl Smith was his name, and the medical examiner ruled his death a suicide. Amani Kildea was found hanging in New Jersey. Apparently, it went without investigation and was ruled a suicide. He was 20 years old. Earlier that same month, two other black men were found hanging just before their deaths were ruled suicides. June 10th, 20-year-old Robert Fuller in California appeared to be a suicide, is what the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Homicide Bureau Department stated. And one day before that, 27-year-old Dominique Alexander was found near the Hudson River in New York City, hanging from a tree, also ruled a suicide. In May, Malcolm Harsh was found hanging in California. He was 38, hanging from a tree near a homeless encampment. In 2018, two separate cases, two black people were found hanging from trees in the metro Atlanta area within 3 weeks of each other. Both ruled suicides. Also in 2018, Alize Smith and Jerron Moreland, both 21, both black, both lynched in Oklahoma. As you see, there are many, many, many that we just don't hear about. All of this goes on in modern America, and all of it goes on without media involvement, without involving the communities, without proper police work. And I guarantee you, these are not all suicides, if any. So now we will move into that first story I brought up in Brookfield, Wisconsin, which involves 39-year-old Torrance, known to his loved ones as Tori Medley. On November 13th, 2025, he was found dead, hanging from a tree, the Brookfield Hills Golf Course in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Almost immediately, authorities labeled it a suicide. No hesitation, no caution, no acknowledgement of the very real, very painful historical context of a black man being found hanging from a tree in America. Just quick, simple, it looks like suicide. But Tori's family isn't accepting that. And honestly, neither am I. His sister has spoken out, saying nothing about his behavior or conversations leading up to that day suggesting suicidal intent. This was a man with family, with connections, with reason to live. Yet he was found outdoors in a public area with a strap around his neck attached to a tree branch. And the immediate assumption is that he did it to himself. He's from Milwaukee. Brookfield is not a walk away. And at the time, Tori did not have a car. Somehow he got there. Police say the investigation indicates suicide. Well, indicators can be wrong. Indicators can be biased. Indicators can be influenced by the exact same system that has dismissed suspicious deaths of black men for generations. They say they're reviewing surveillance footage. It's an ongoing investigation, apparently, but as of now, publicly, nothing. No answers, no explanations, no evidence released to dismiss the possibility of foul play. And that's the issue. These cases are being closed or put aside before they're truly opened. Families are left holding pain without truth, and communities are left holding fear without answers. So let's look at the next one. This particular case is disturbing in many, many ways, with many inconsistencies and questions left behind. Donte Perez Jones, a 35-year-old veteran, was found an hour away from his home where he has no ties, hanging from the monkey bars at Wentz Run Park in Whitpain Township, Pennsylvania. Of course, automatically ruled a suicide. His mother tells us that his wallet was missing. She also recounts a time that her son, Dante, told her specifically, if anyone ever tells you I committed suicide, don't believe them. His feet were reportedly touching the ground when his body was found, a detail raised by the family. and there were unexplained bruises on his body. Now, the family also tells us that they were initially denied the right to identify his body for about 48 hours, and they had to push for an autopsy, which the results of have not been publicly released, of course. A huge suspicion has been raised about the fact that just hours after the body was found, park reopened, making it impossible to preserve the scene and conduct a proper investigation. And as of now, 3 years later, the only answers anybody can get from the town's officials is that it's an ongoing investigation. The family is pushing for an independent autopsy and full transparency, and they are raising funds to support that. Mississippi is a critical factor in this whole conversation where our next case happened because this isn't just about a random hanging. It's happening in a state with a deeply painful history of racial violence. According to the Marshall Project, since 2000, at least 9 black men have been found hanging from trees in Mississippi. Every single one ruled suicide. That's actually an astronomical number when you think about it, going off the data that I mentioned earlier. And when you zoom out to the entire country, the number is not small. It's not rare and it's not random. There's a pattern. September 15th, 2025, Damar Trevion, or Trey Reed, was found hanging from a tree on the Delta State University campus. It was ruled a suicide. The family of Trey has launched an independent investigation into his death, getting an independent autopsy done. And apparently, that autopsy, the results have been concluded, but have not been publicly released. So we still have no information on what happened with that case. Still, the history in Mississippi cannot be ignored. September 11th, 2024, Javion MaGee, a 21-year-old truck driver from Chicago, was making a delivery in North Carolina. And that morning, he was found sitting outside a fenced in area at the base of a tree with a rope wrapped around his neck and the other end attached to the tree. Ruled a suicide, no surprise there. But if that's the case, how was he sitting on the ground? Friends and family reported that he was in good spirits. He was planning his next moves, had no history of mental health issues or criminal background. And sadly, key evidence and potential witnesses along his route were never properly investigated. Another young black man in America, you can add to the list of the people in power don't give a shit about, therefore, didn't put in the effort. All these stories are just building this pattern of adding to the pattern of systemic failure in America. And here's where it becomes impossible to ignore the larger problem. First of all, local police often respond first, but in these cases, their actions are consistently lackluster or dismissive when it comes to somebody they are biased against, a personal bias. And yes, usually, historically, it's black people when it comes to white America. They fail to collect evidence properly, interview witnesses thoroughly, cross check timelines or alibis, treat the scene as potentially criminal. Number two, state authorities, whether it's prosecutors or investigative units, they frequently defer to the local ruling even when evidence is questionable. Third, the DOJ rarely steps in unless there's overwhelming public pressure. Even then, investigations can take months or years, leaving families suspended in uncertainty, sustained by the reassurances they're given. Reassurances that sound like progress, but disguise reality. That these cases often receive little to no genuine investigation. Bottom line, when black men are found hanging in America today, the system protects itself first and the truth rarely. Families are forced to fight for justice against the very institutions meant to protect them. Quick closure of cases, labeled as suicide, lack of federal oversight, minimal accountability for law enforcement. This is why I label it the modern day lynching in America. Systemic, institutionalized, and hidden. Continues to this day in the United States of America in 2025. So, this is the message America sends when black bodies are found hanging in 2024, 2023, 2022, 2025, and every year before and after, and nobody blinks. This is about the trauma passed down through generations because we're still living with the same violence, the same silence, and the same denial, but it's dressed up in modern day clothing. I'm not going to be silent because if America is really as advanced and equal and just as it claims to be, then it shouldn't be scared of transparency. It shouldn't be scared of facts, the truth. So, to every family still fighting, to every community still grieving, to everyone who refuses to let these names be forgotten or brushed aside, I hear you, I see you, and I'm standing right here with you. This episode isn't the end, it's the beginning. Because I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep digging, keep saying their names, and keep forcing the conversation into the open until justice becomes the default, not the exception. Thank you for listening. Be sure to share this, talk about it, and stand with us. And I'll see you in the next episode. Right here on From Dirt We Grow.